Have you already played Monster Hunter Now? It's a new mobile game developed by Niantic and Capcom and released it in September 2023. As a Monster Hunter player myself, I presumed the game to be closer to Monster Hunter World rather than Rise playstyle before the game was released, even though both Iceborne and Sunbreak clearly had a major influence on the development of Monster Hunter Now. On the other side though, I did not expect so many changes and improvements to the weapons, specifically the longsword. I was genuinely surprised. Today I want to talk about how the longsword gameplay changed and what adjustments made this weapon feel different and refreshed from the previous titles. Hello everyone, it's me, Peppo. Sorry for the wait, I really wanted to deliver this video before, but I couldn't. Well, I'm here now to show and discuss new stuff added to the longsword in this new game in anticipation of Monster Hunter 6, because I know we all are intrepidly waiting for its release in 2025 after the announcement of Monster Hunter Wilds at the end of last year. With that in mind, I'd love to start right away talking about the new changes and combos that make the longsword feel unique in Monster Hunter Now. Of course, we need to keep in mind that this is a mobile game, so especially because of the controls, it does have some restrictions that can't simply be overlooked. Nonetheless, as you will see in the rest of this video, this limitation together with the short time limit of the hunts brought changes that sometimes managed to improve specific aspects of the longsword gameplay in my opinion. Before starting, please be aware that I will not cover other aspects of the game besides the combat. This game looks like it divided the Monster Hunter community because even though the gameplay feels smooth, many aspects of this game could have been improved a lot. Just to list some, the difficulty of farming materials and the problematic multiplayer aspect of the game. There are also other issues I personally have with Monster Hunter Now, but for the moment I'm just gonna focus on its strong point, which is the combat. Let's see how the longsword changed. In Monster Hunter Now, the spirit gauge system got reworked in a very smart way. It's like the fusion between 2nd gen and World, with some cool additions. The classic white, yellow and red levels of the spirit gauge were removed, and this was one of the best things they could do for longsword. I've been waiting for this change to the longsword since 3rd gen dropped basically. Why, you might ask? Put simply, just removing the gauge levels makes this weapon a lot stronger. You don't need to waste time leveling up the gauge every single time to reach the red gauge, but you can already get full power by filling up the gauge at the very start, similar to Freedom Unite. No more stress and time wasted to build up the gauge to red every single time. They probably decided to remove the spirit gauge levels because in now the hunts can't last more than 75 seconds, and if they kept that old gauge system you couldn't even slay a great Chagras by the time you level up the gauge 3 times. This major change to the longsword is significantly important in my opinion. After they introduced Spirit Roundslash in 3rd gen, and Helm and Iai Spirit Slash in 5th gen, there seemed not to be any way out of this gauge level system. Roundslash was there just to level up the gauge, Helm to drop it by 1 level, and Iai Spirit Slash could either drop it or maintain the current gauge level, basically a high risk, high reward attack. Each of these moves was deeply connected to the spirit gauge level system of longsword, but then Monster Hunter Now dropped, and that's the great thing that this game achieved. It managed to unlink these iconic moves from that old system in a way that they still play a key role in the gameplay even without the spirit gauge levels. Not everything about longsword was improved, however. The change to how you fill up the spirit gauge is what I didn't personally like the most. In this game there is no difference between normal attacks and spirit attacks. Every attack fills up the gauge. This change was probably added since you can't decide which attack to perform by tapping on the screen, but you always start with a step slash and you continue with a thrust, rising slash and then the whole spirit combo starting from Spirit Blade first and finishing with Spirit Roundslash. There is a different way to combo the attacks by sweeping down after specific moves to perform a backward fade slash, after which you can chain a spirit jumping slash, followed by directly a Spirit Blade third for example, but other than that the attack combos are relatively simple like all the weapons. Filling up about 70% of the gauge grants a 50% damage buff. When that happens, the spirit gauge gets this red border around it. 50% may look excessive compared to the 12% attack buff we get in Sunbreak and 20% in Iceborne with red gauge. However, as the game is designed and compared to the other weapons, it seems balanced this way. There are only a bunch of ways you can consume the gauge, by landing a Helm, performing a special Sheathe, and getting hit by a monster. On top of that, there is still the passive depletion of the spirit if you don't land any attack after about 3 seconds. It probably sounds extremely simple compared to what we have been used to, but it works. The gameplay is smooth and fun, similar to Iceborne but better because there is no clutch glow, claggers or tenderizing mechanic. Sometimes you just need to simplify things to improve the gameplay. You don't always have to add new crazy moves or mechanics to improve a game. Not being able to choose which attack to start your combo with and how to continue it is a huge drawback, but I guess this is because it's a mobile game. I'm pretty sure on console or PC they wouldn't have done it this way. Except for the same monotonous combo and the fact that there is no real difference with the usage of the gauge between a spirit combo attack and a step slash or rising slash, I genuinely like how this longsword feels. Let's take a closer look at those iconic moves I previously mentioned and see how they exactly changed. The Spirit Roundslash just fills up the spirit gauge by about 10%, since there are no more spirit gauge levels. In Monster Hunter Now, the hitbox of the Roundslash has finally been adjusted. I lost count how many times I could not hit the monster because the body part was just slightly above the ground. In this game you can hit with the Spirit Roundslash even if the monster is flying. How good is that? Another improved aspect about this move is that you have several ways to cancel out the last part of the animation. In Word and Iceborne, the only way to skip it was by using the special Sheathe. In Now, however, since the hunter can't sheath the weapon, you automatically draw the longsword after the Roundslash, so that you can immediately perform many actions like rolling, performing a step slash, a backward fade slash, and even a Foresight Slash. Moreover, because longsword attacks don't consume the spirit gauge anymore, you can infinitely chain this new combo: Spirit Roundslash, Fade Slash, Spirit Jumping Slash, Spirit Blade Third, and repeat. The Foresight Slash fills up about 12% of the spirit gauge, and it can be activated after any attack or animation, including Spirit Roundslash, Helm Breaker, Special Sheathe, Iai Spirit Slash, and even Foresight Slash itself. I bet many longsword users in Word would have loved to perform a double Foresight Slash. Well, now it is possible. That's because this counter now got split into two different actions. The first is the dodge, which requires perfect timing, and the second one is the counter attack that follows it. You need to tap on the screen after you dodge to perform the follow-up attack. It is not automatic like in the main series, which means you can decide the timing, giving you the freedom to hold the dodge for a max of about 2 seconds and so delay the counter attack. But the changes don't stop here. In this game, in fact, you can perform a Foresight Slash even without performing any previous attack. You can do it in idle, after a roll, or a special sheath. On a first glance, Foresight Slash might seem too weak compared to Iai Spirit Slash. However, it is important to highlight that you can do a Foresight Slash whenever you want to, while Iai Spirit Slash needs preparation by performing a special sheath before being able to use it. Moreover, Foresight Slash, even though it has a small power attack, can be chained with a Spirit Roundslash, which has a pretty high attack power instead. In this way, both counters seems to be balanced within the longsword move pool. The Spirit Thrust and Helm Breaker were also reworked. You can only access the former after you obtain that red border around the spirit gauge, and only after a Iai Spirit Slash. And this one is a big drawback. Unlike from the main series, the Spirit Thrust and the following Helm Breaker can only be performed after a Iai Spirit Slash. The Helm Breaker can be used after the Spirit Thrust, but differently from the previous games, you can decide either if you want to chain the Thrust with a Helm Breaker or if you want to cancel it with a roll, for example. This addition is one of my favorites. The game lets you decide if you want to follow up a Spirit Thrust with a Helm Breaker. You are not forced to do it. The Spirit Thrust can now be executed at 360 degrees and it covers more distance. This change alone is a blessing. How many times did we fail to chain a Spirit Thrust after we correctly executed a Iai Spirit Slash in Iceborne? In Monster Hunter Now you can follow up a Spirit Thrust after a Iai Spirit Slash even behind you, resulting in a major improvement from Iceborne. In this game, Helm Breaker hits up to 6 times. Not 7 like in Word and Rise. What's more, since there are no gauge levels, it costs about 60% of the spirit gauge. However, like in the previous games, the move grants flinch free, and if you land it, your spirit gauge will start to fill up automatically for 5 seconds. The only drawback is that we cannot change the direction in mid-air of the Helm Breaker differently from Iceborne. On a quick side note, there are 2 types of Helm Breakers in Monster Hunter Now. The first one is what I just explained, while the second one is the special move that can be activated once you charge this longsword icon on the screen. If you tap on it, you will perform a special Spirit Thrust followed by a Helm Breaker that deals about double the damage of a regular one. It does not consume any spirit gauge, and on top of that you are invincible for the whole animation. To give you a rough idea, you can normally do this move twice per hunt. The special Sheathe comes with a cost of 10% of the spirit gauge. The idea of putting a cost on this action and not giving it for free could also be a right choice. Since Iai Spirit Slash can be used pretty much every time you want, it makes sense to give it a limitation by adding a spirit gauge cost on the special sheath. What's more, this move now got some new additions. Here you can use it even without performing any previous attack, like the Foresight Slash, so you can do it in idle or after a roll. However, you can't chain Iai Spirit Slash with a special sheath this time around. Maybe they realized that this combo was too broken even for a mobile game. What's more, in this game you can hold the special sheath forever, so you don't have to worry about it expiring after 3 seconds. But the changes are not finished yet. After performing a special sheath, you could either use Iai Slash, Iai Spirit Slash or a roll after it in the previous games. Now you can't do Iai Slash anymore, but only Iai Spirit Slash. You can also immediately roll out of the sheathing stance, or you can perform a backward face slash. But if you wish, you can even do a Foresight Slash right after a special sheath. As you see, there are many options to choose from. Lastly, the Iai Spirit Slash is probably the move that changed the least. However, in the end, they managed to balance it with the rest of the longsword attacks, something that Monster Hunter Rise failed to do. By removing the spirit gauge levels, Iai Spirit Slash is not at the center of the longsword gameplay anymore. Indeed, receiving 55% of the spirit gauge if you time it correctly is huge, but it's nothing crazy compared to leveling up the spirit gauge immediately like in Rise and Sunbreak. The attack power is still really high, but the Spirit Blade combo got buffed so that now you can actually deal good damage when a monster is not attacking you, and you don't have to bomb yourself to trigger counters to deal high damage. This is another big improvement from Rise Sunbreak. Lastly, one little but highly impactful change is the hitbox and range. This attack now covers a longer distance, allowing to hit the monster even if it's a bit far. And secondly, its hitbox got raised so that it can reach monsters' parts that are a bit higher than the position of the longsword when performing this attack. As you see, despite not receiving any new attacks, Longsword in Monster Hunter now got lots of improvements from Ward, Iceborne and Rise Sunbreak Longsword. I did not expect that, to be honest. It's clear that they put some effort into improving this weapon, and I appreciate that. Longsword in Monster Hunter now is proof that you don't always need to add complicated new moves or mechanics to improve the gameplay of a weapon. Sometimes what you already have is enough, you just need to polish it to make it better. I can't help but have high expectations for the Longsword in Monster Hunter Wilds. Well, with that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the comment section. See you in the next one, bye!